Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. You're watching The Vuyo Show. We are coming to you from New York City. And of course, like I do all the time right here on the show, I bring you very interesting individuals who have some very interesting stories to share with us. And hopefully, this conversation will inspire you to go ahead and reach your full potential. I have one of New York's finest television hosts I'm sitting down with today. He's normally on the other side of the camera, but today he's on the other side where I get to ask him and grill him on some questions about his journey in television and so much more. So wherever you are around the world, please sit back, relax, and enjoy the next couple of minutes together with myself and the one and only Dometi Pongo.
I always love your intros, man. Thank you for having me, Vuyo. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Long time coming.
Absolutely. It's been way too long.
Way too long.
So I'm glad I was able to make it in, and you weren't too booking busy to have me in here. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
How are you? How are you doing?
I'm well. God is good. I'm rejuvenated. I'm refreshed. All is well, man.
All is well. You're wearing green, and they say that green is a color of joy, vibrancy, earthy, growth, all these things.
Are you like that too? Like, do you wear colors like that fit your mood? Because sometimes even if I'm feeling down, I'll wear a bright color to make myself feel better. So
funny story. I just recently started reading a book about color. And my trajectory of what color is has completely changed.
Oh, wow.
Now I look at color that way. So colors like red signify strength and royalty,
and power,
and all these types of things. And then the greens and the blues are all
calm,
about
earth.
Yeah.
I'm into that too, the color psychology.
I was never like that though before I started reading that book. So be careful what you read.
No, it's true. It's true. It'll change you.
But man, as I said, like there's just definitely been so much that I've been interested. I remember I met you a couple of months ago at the South African Embassy, and I was like, who is this guy? I'm intrigued on just knowing a little bit more about him, but also his journey, because I think there's so much that it would take for one to be in the position that you're in today. I mean, we get to see you on TV, we get excited, we see you with all these celebrities, but I know there's a story there, and that's what I'm looking forward to unpacking today.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. I hope it doesn't underwhelm you.
I know. I'm sure it's interesting. But
sure.
The first question that I asked myself when I saw the work that you get to do was, who did this guy watch growing up on TV? Like, what was the TV show that made you decide, I want to be there?
I actually never intended on going into journalism as a kid. Yeah. So there were these figures that would pop up on television that you would see on BET or CNN, the nightly news, whether it's Lester Holt, all of these different figures. But I never said I wanted to be that. They just kind of just were. So my dad was really into talk radio. You know, my parents are from Ghana. They immigrated here in the 70s or so. And the morning routine was he'd play Rush Limbaugh. He would hate listening to Rush Limbaugh, the Republican conservative talking head who has since passed away, but spewed so much hate on his show. And my dad would listen to him religiously. But I learned the art of just holding conversations, talking, getting the people going, and how even someone who doesn't like you finds you so interesting that they'll listen to you all the time. But I still didn't think that I would be in that space. The one thing that kind of got me in the media space happened later on in life. I was like 24, 23 or something. And my guy recommended that I read a book called The Producer by Wendy Walker.
Nice.
Yeah, and Wendy Walker was Larry King's producer. And so, ironically enough, when I started really thinking about journalism as a career, Larry King was one of the earliest people that I looked at. But, you know, then everybody.
Yeah.
The Sways, the Oprahs, Petey Green, even Don Cornelius when it comes to Soul Train, how you can just be calm and cool while all of this fun and chaos is happening around you. And you can just still manage the vibes without doing too much. Like, I pick a little bit from a lot of folks.
Yeah. So you'd say then your dad playing that particular show and you hearing that consistently, to some degree, did something in your ears that went into your brain that stimulated how you then saw journalism to be.
That's right. It also showed me the importance of listening to the other side so that your rebuttals are well informed.
Yeah.
So if you know what the other side is saying politically, then you know what, you either become swayed when they make sense or you become more firmly entrenched in what you believe if what they're saying has holes in the theories and falsehoods. And it wasn't just Rush. It was, he listened to mad talk radio stations. And then, ironically, when I jumped into journalism, my first job was on a news talk station in Chicago called WVON. But I don't think that happens without those long rides to school with talk radio. Everybody else listening to music in the morning, I'm listening to some white man scream obscenities.
And that gives context, right? Because now when I get to see you doing the interviews and you asking the questions, there's a particular way in which you think about the person that you're talking. And that's just me observing, right? And now it makes sense, right? It makes sense. It all kind of comes into perspective. Chicago in and of itself, there are a couple of folks that come from Chicago that have that spark.
Yeah, I mean, y'all may have heard of her, Oprah. She ain't from Chicago, but, you know, she's Chicago bred,
Yes.
you know.
I like that. What is Chicago like? And I'm asking this question because there are people who might be watching from other parts of the world and are interested to knowing a little bit more about that part of the U.S., which is where you are made. It made you and who you are today. So if you were to paint a picture of what Chicago's like, what would you say that is?
Man, thanks for asking that question on this global platform, because there's so many people from so many countries, and what people hear about Chicago is usually at odds with what the city actually is like. Chicago is a beautiful city. It's a highly segregated city. So, you know, you can almost, if someone gives you their zip code, the neighborhood they live in, you can tell them the demographic makeup of that city, which I think a lot of places in America are like that, but Chicago is segregation on crack. You know, it's very, very segregated and compartmentalized. My parents, when they came to the States, my parents are Ewe and
At a tribe?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, Ewe Ghanaian tribe, and they had a strong community. Ewe Association of Chicago was every one of my parents' friends, who are my uncles and aunties, and their kids were my cousins. So we had a tight-knit Ghanaian community that I was a part of, but I also was a part of another community growing up in America. So I grew up on the southeast side of Chicago, which is vibrant. Think about, you know, growing up seeing the firehouse. We had a firehouse across the street from my crib. They would bust open the fire hydrant in the summertime and spray it so the kids could have fun. And the candy lady, you know, giving you 5-cent candy, and you know, flaming hots with chips and cheese and meat on them, like, you know, just playing outside, touching grass, like community. But Chicago also has a problem with street organizations, with gangs, and there are rough, you know, aspects to living in Chicago. So eventually my parents moved to the south suburb called Calumet City, but due to gentrification, the neighborhood I grew up there was also plagued with some of those same challenges. So I kind of had a diverse upbringing, both as a Chicagoan, but as an Ewe man, as an African, and but it's a beautiful place, man. No city like it. Best skyline in the world, I think.
Still have to make my way to Chicago one day.
Oh, you got to. You got to.
Apparently it's very cold in the winter though over there.
Yeah, but in the summer, you know, we've been having these boat parties in the summer lately. You know, I'm saying we, like I've been there. I've been in New York for like 7 years, but but you know, they I think a lot of people forget that Chicago sits right along Lake Michigan. So there's this, you know, we kick it too, and I should say this too. We're a conscious city too. Fred Hampton, you know what I mean, the chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party, who was killed in tragic manner by you know, police. Chicago's political acumen, even the DNC this year will be in Chicago. Chicago is deeply entrenched in politics. We're a city of organizers, a city of activists, a city of people who don't take the status quo, you know, lying on his face. So it's a very dynamic city. So I think, you know, as I'm talking, I'm realizing how much of that plays into who I am. You know?
And it forms that diversity then within you. But also another element of what I'm kind of intrigued by is this dichotomy of African American, right? Being a Ghanaian man and growing up in a Ghanaian home, but outside the home then is America. Yeah. Right? What does that look like?
When'd you come to the States?
A year ago.
Oh, so so you were grown already. So you So, but it's weird that being born in Chicago and going to school and seeing people who literally not in no hyperbolic, figurative way, literally look like cousins of yours, making you feel othered, is a very strange thing. You know, whether it's the African booty scratcher thing or people, kids making fun of your name just out of ignorance.
Yeah.
And I remember I came home and I was asking my dad, like, yo, they making fun of me because I'm dark skinned, because I'm African. Like, I don't get it. Like, he was like, my dad's crazy. He said, you go to school and you tell them that they're light skinned because their ancestors were raped by their slave masters. And I'm 6 years old. I'm like, I don't even know what that word means. I should have gave a trigger warning before I used the R word. But, and so, you know, I said that, and some girl went off and started crying. I was like, Daddy, what did that mean? Like, why would you have me say that? And then, but he just broke down. It forced me to have early conversations, even before I talked about anti-black racism from white people. It forced me to have early conversations about why there's this perceived rift between African and African Americans, and it's by design. It's something that is in the benefit of white supremacy. So I never blame, you know, our brothers and sisters in the States for believing what they've been taught about Africa and about who we are and what we look like. And then now you fast forward years later, and Afro beats, African music, African culture is the hottest thing going. So, you know, it was interesting growing up though. It was kind of mind-boggling to see that.
Yeah. And did you? How entrenched were you within Ghanaian? Do you speak the language? Do you still eat the food?
I don't speak fluently. Okay. You know, I speak a little here and there, and then I lost it. Like if I go to Ghana for a little while, it kind of comes back, and then I leave and I forget everything, so it's hard to practice. And then, you know, obviously in the city, and I cry, mostly everybody speaks Tree, but my people speak Ewe. So you got two languages. Now, people from SA, y'all like just, you know, I have two languages I'm dealing with. Y'all be speaking like 5.
We have 11.
Yeah, I got 11 total. But how many can you speak? See, that's what I'm saying. So y'all like, you can't handle 2 languages. But for me, it was very difficult, you know, to kind of learn. And so I never been able to fully pick up, or if I pick up one, then I'm going to see an auntie and she's like, you know, she's applying me in Ewe, and I'm speaking Tree back, you know, so I never, but culturally, as far as the food that I ate, when I finally, as an adult, we used to go back a lot when I was a kid, well, a couple times. But as an adult, I planned these trips for African Americans to come with me in 2016 through a promotion with the radio station I was working with. And it was just crazy seeing at that time, as quickly from 2016, it was people asking, why should I go to Africa? What's out there? You know, what's it like? I mean, are the hotels good? Like just these real, and I don't mean this in a super derogatory way, but ignorant in the pure sense of the word, just really ignorant questions, to 2019 when you can't get people to stop going, you know what I mean? So it was, you know, throughout my life, it was always this thing of, you know, making sure people understood how dope, you know, my culture and heritage is. And I wouldn't say that, like, I don't want to give the perception that those, that teasing and that rift characterized my entire childhood. You know, I was still like a friendly kid, a popular kid. I was cool with mad people and stuff. I learned how to crack back at people, know how to fight. I know how to do a lot of things that like it protects you, you know, in certain environments. And so it was a good childhood. And I don't harbor anything from that. I just want to say that because sometimes some Africans be still mad as adults. Y'all gotta let the hurt go, man. The kids didn't know, man. They were teasing us, they didn't know.
Yeah, and even if you're an American child, they will still get teased anyway. Like
it's gonna happen. They're gonna find something. They're gonna find something. So.
And how about then when you get to Ghana? What was that? Was it a safe space to then become this American Ghanaian when you're over on the other side? What is it like?
That was my biggest fear when I went in 2016. So imagine, you know, feeling in your heart. So Ghanaian is such a part of your makeup and your DNA, even though you don't speak, you can't name specific neighborhoods in our crowd, you feel disconnected. So when I went, I wanted to connect. And I remember being on the plane and being scared that when I got off the plane, what if they don't mess with me the way I mess with them? What if I'm not accepted? What if I'm other there too?
Exactly.
And but I felt super, super, super welcome. Like when I went back home, every now and then, like if I'm kicking it with some cousins, my cousin Kofi or my guy Freya or something when I'm moving around, you know, you'll hear them. I speak enough Tree to know when my friend is sticking up for me because they're saying like, who is this guy? Like, you know, like, or they start calling Americans, no matter your complexion, they'll call you a brony, you know what I mean? But a brony is like white or something like that, you know? But like, you know, so they can tell I'm Americanized, but even in those differences, I never felt othered in a way that made me feel uncomfortable or like I wasn't you know, like these weren't my people. I never felt like that when I was in Ghana.
I'm glad you had that experience. I'm glad that it was safe and comfortable. And people like, I think it's people like yourself, first generation Americans, that have changed the trajectory of what Africa is. And I'm saying this because, you know, having seen people like yourself be excellent in what they do it well, and be in spaces. Now, when people are engaging with you, they start seeing Africa in a different perspective, right? And I think I was having a conversation yesterday with someone who works at the embassy, and is like, the demand of people wanting to get South African, Nigerian, Ghanaian visas and have citizenship over there is growing exponentially.
Yes.
Because it's people like yourselves who have, you know, who are here, who make it cool to be African, who make the culture cool, the experiences cool, the Amapiano cool, the Afrobeats cool, you know what I mean? So now it's like, everybody wants to go to Africa, you know?
Yeah, it's true. One thing I'm so glad that my parents did too was I have, you know, I've had friends and cousins and family members who also had, like, you know, Christian names, which is really just another word for American names. And I was never, even if I wanted to, I never had a moment where I could be like, oh, I'm not Dometi, I'm David, or something. Like, I wasn't able to, dang, I know a Nigerian named David. My bad, bro, I ain't talking about you. But like, but I never had even an opportunity to not wear it. And as a kid, when people are asking you, say your name again, pronounce it again, can you say, you know, it becomes irritating. But there's a famous, you know, Tupac quote where he's like, the power of having a name that people can't pronounce, that the first time you say it is, from young you build confidence. The second time you say it with more strength. By the third time, you stand firm more. No, before this conversation is over, you're gonna know how to say my name. And even just that, when I started making music, when I was in high school and all these different things, my name that used to be something that people teased became something that was so cool that people thought that I changed my name to Dometi. I'm like, no, you guys are just saying it right now. They were pronouncing it differently before.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it just goes into what you said, like, just being confident in who we are on this soil, you know, makes people say, like, where did they get that from? Like, what's up with them? And, you know, and they see Africa is cool now, you know?
And I know that a lot of African names have meaning. What does Dometi mean?
It means the pillar of the family,
Nice.
or the pillar or backbone. And my last name means, I guess it translates roughly to workhorse, you know, so to speak, hardworking, something like that.
Okay, you see, words have meaning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Names have meaning.
That's
and now
right.
you can see that coming into fruition in your life,
So
right?
True. It's true.
And what does your family dynamic look like? You have your dad,
My mom, dad, two big sisters.
Nice.
You know, the baby boy, which is probably why I got the name.
Okay.
You know, the backbone of the family. And you know, one of my proudest moments was as my career began to take off. My sisters always loved our last name, and so, you know, they're both married. They hyphenated their last names, but, you know, on Facebook and stuff or certain documents, they would just use their married name. But I don't know if this is true. I think it's true. I think as my profile began to grow, and as, you know, we had mutual friends, and they were, you know, they were proud. I made the name so proud that they purely use the hyphenated version of the name now, you know. But it just made me think about it when we talk about family dynamic. But yeah, I have 5 beautiful nieces, 1 nephew, you know, 2 big sisters. Mom and dad.
Those are the things that make us who we are, above and beyond the accolades, which we're gonna be unpacking as well in this conversation. But it's nice to know you and where you come from and what makes you who you are, right?
Thank you.
And you mentioned briefly that there was music that played a role in your career as well.
Yeah.
Why music? What sparked your interest within that space? Was it Tupac? Maybe?
He was an inspiration for sure. And his birthday was like 2 days before mine, but I was very young when Tupac was out. But like, I saw a lot of things through my sister's eyes very early. My oldest sister is 10 years my senior, and then my middle sister is 6 years older than me. My oldest sister was an MC when she was like 16 years old. She was rapping, and in hindsight, I don't know why she did this, but she took her 6-year-old little brother and her, 12-year-old little sister everywhere with her. So I matured early, but I saw everything very early. I just wanted to be like Nunya. I wanted to be like Nunya was a rapper. I started writing verses, and I wrote my first verse with her help at like 6 years old. And that also, you know, gave me the confidence at the lunch table, you know, people making the beat on the table, you know, rapping and MCing. And I did that all the way through, you know, through college. And then kind of had a crossroads where I was trying to decide, you know, the version of the musician that I want to be, is my life conducive to that level of sacrifice? And so I kind of pivoted and took some time to find my way and ended up in journalism. But I wouldn't be a journalist if not for rap.
What does it mean? You said the type of musician that you wanted to be. Please kind of get into a little bit more depth within that.
Sure.
Was there a crossroad that had to steer you away from music?
Well, I always been into lyricism, you know,
Yeah.
and I would have considered myself back then, and I hope folks who dig in the crates from way back, you know, and know me from back then, I was a wordsmith, a lyricist, etc. When I got to high school, and you know, me and my partner at the time, who I used to spit with, Ute, he's still making music as well. Ute Crazy, you can check him out. But he actually, today is his birthday. I just hit him up today.
Well, happy birthday!
Yeah, happy birthday, Ute Crazy. That's my guy. But me and my dog, we would produce this entire album in his closet at his house. We had the stocking cap over the folded hanger for the mic screen, and his mother, you know, would take us to photo shoots. She was kind of like our manager for a long time. We eventually pressed up CDs and sold them at the mall for consignment. And so, you know, our group was called SG, and we really had traction in Calumet City for a little time. And the things that were popping at the time, like, you know, Soulja Boy was coming out and all these different snap music, and it was a certain type of aesthetic that I felt, you know, wasn't lyrics heavy. So I would try to insert my lyrics within these broader, commercially acceptable soundscapes. And fast forward a little bit of time, when I go solo, I go to college, my music becomes a little more deep, more conscious, more introspective. And just for those type of artists, it's a longer, slower burn. It's a longer trajectory, you know, to be a big crit. For every Kendrick Lamar, there are a million phenomenal Royce da 5'9" that might not have seen that mainstream notoriety that they thought that they actually deserved early in their career. So I always wondered if, okay, either you can dumb it down and try to do something that's commercially viable. I could stay true to self and know it's gonna be a long road, and spend my life on the road and really love this. And do you love this enough to go through that? And I thought I did. I really did think I did. But then because of pressure from home and family and everything, I ended up getting a job in corporate America, and I lost a lot of years of creative productivity. That corporate America, it sucked my soul. You know, it paused. It like took my energy, my creative energy from me. And, you know, I figured out how to get back to it, and I kind of felt disconnected from music as a career choice, as a day job, as like a career choice, and I just put my passion somewhere else. I know it's a really long answer, but yeah.
It was an honest answer. Wow. But there's an honesty in the way in which you answer that question, and I think a lot of creatives don't have that conversation with themselves.
No, they don't want to be honest about, like, yo, do I really want to put the work in at this level? Do I really love it? Like, will you do this? If you're touring, if you spend your life on the road for 4 years and you drop 6 mixtapes that nobody listens to, you know what I'm saying? Like, will you stick it through? Do you want it that bad? And if nothing happens that is owed to you, because nothing is owed to us, but if whatever you think it is, will you stick it through and say, you know what, I'm happy because I'm doing my life's passion? And I had to be honest, I was a little bit of a capitalist. I was like, if I'm not making money in a certain amount of time, then I'm pivoting. I was like, might as well pivot now. If you're thinking that now, you may think that later. So I'll give you the full answer. I actually prayed to God one night, and I was, I want to say, how old was I? I don't know. This might have been 2008. And I said, God, if I'm not supposed to be doing this, I don't know why you gave me this gift. You know, it wasn't like when I grew up, like a lot of people want to be rappers because they see the glitz, the glam, and want to be in video. I've been rapping since 6 years old. I always had a way with words. So I'm like, if this ain't gonna work, Lord, show me what I'm supposed to be doing so I can stop wasting my time. Because I'm not gonna be on the road for several years dropping mixtapes nobody wants to hear. And then everything, the stars align. So I'm right where my purpose is supposed to be.
Yeah, and I think what impresses me the most is that the honesty within that conversation it brought you to a different outcome, but still to some degree, still in the same impact.
Yes.
You're still using words, you're still writing, you're still speaking. it's still back into that trajectory, but God had to show you another way of doing it. And sometimes we want the one way, and God's like, nope, I have another way.
That's right. That's right. and then I have something I've said often. I don't know if I'm the first to say it, but I have been ingrained it into my brain. But bring everything you are to everything you do, because all of our past experiences inform the next thing we're going to do. And a lot of people think that because they put an art form down, or they stopped, or they pivoted, they changed, everything you are and have been is going to help move you forward. And so the questions I ask artists, there's certain questions I don't ask them about their creative process because it's disrespectful, because I know what it means to ask certain questions about the writing process or to critique. I never really outwardly, unless something is really effing bad to me, or unless I really respect an artist and know they can do better, I don't negatively really critique art, because I know how sensitive artists are, because I have been one, you know? It's why Joe Budden is so successful as a podcaster, because he has been an artist. And so, you know, it's just to your point, you know, we sometimes we will get upset because we have these experiences and we wonder what was that journey for? But it all was to culminate into that very moment, that present moment that you're in, you know?
And what were you doing in corporate America?
I was a business analyst at Target headquarters. So I basically ordered products for Target and sent them to different stores, like inventory management, but I did it from headquarters. And we had to wear a suit every day in the office, and it was blah, blah, blah.
You're too cool for that.
Yeah, I'm too cool for that.
But I'm sure there are things that you took from corporate America that, in hindsight, you are thinking now, I'm so grateful that I learned that. I'm so grateful that I was there.
Absolutely.
Share, what would those be?
One, knowing how to communicate to people in terms of their interests.
Okay.
So if I'm talking to my manager about so our metric for success was whether your product was in stock on the shelf, right? What does my manager care about more? Does he care that I'm out of stock right now, or does he just need an explanation to give to his superior that is satisfactory enough to get us through the next period when we're back in stock? So I learned if I can appeal to whatever that person's actual interest is, even when I'm underperforming, I'm straight. That was one of the biggest lessons I learned from corporate America. What do you want? Okay, let me figure out how I can get this into an area that's attractive to you. And if I can do that, I'm gonna win with you.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. And even, I guess, inventory could mean now, as you look at it, that could have been handling people or handling deals or handling, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And now having to then be on the other side and still think and put on that cap. I always find people that pivoted to different careers exceptional, because I'm like, you are at an advantage, because there's some things you know about corporations and about how to run a corporation and how to be a corporation that now you're taking into media, and you're at a complete different advantage.
There's another thing I noticed, Vuyo, like I started seeing that some of the people who were moving forward, there were people who were very hardworking, who were always in stock, who didn't get promoted as fast as people who were hardworking but were also charismatic, or who went to all of the happy hours, who went to all of the things. And it's something that often people of color struggle with, because we might not relate to our coworkers or want to go to those other things. And so I found ways to create alliances. So the other thing I learned was to always try to have someone in the room who can advocate for you, have a sponsor in the room for you. So if I don't necessarily connect with this team, but I connect with one person on this team and then another person when I'm not there, as long as those people can say, no, I talked to Dometi about this thing, and inserting some of my main strong points and my efficacies and how I think about the business into our natural conversation, so that you've got that ammo in case you need to advocate when somebody says, yo, Dometi would be dope for this opportunity. It helped me tremendously at MTV and at Paramount when, you know, I made friends with, and these were organic friendships, but I just made friends with people who would later go on to move in different spaces in the company, and they would tap me and bring me along.
Yeah.
But I learned that from corporate America.
And what was happening that one day where you decided, I'm leaving corporate America? What was in your mind and in your heart as well? Because sometimes you can think about something, but your heart is somewhere else. But what was in your heart specifically that made you say, you know what, it's time?
I haven't thought about this in a long while. I think it was when there was a lag time between when my heart was out of it and when I realized my heart was out of it.
Okay.
Because I went to like a functional depression for a little while. So I'm doing, and Minnesota is, if you guys don't know, is very, very cold. And when it's not summertime, if you go to work at 7 a.m. and if you come home at 6 or 7 p.m., you'll never see sunlight. So that seasonal depression becomes real. And then it's cold, it's not very diverse, so you're not seeing people who are interested in what you do. If you go to a hip hop club, they're playing songs from 10 years ago. So it was very, at least this was the case when I lived there in 2012. So I was, long story short, I ended up going like 3 months without contacting my family. I didn't even know I was depressed, but my sisters, Afinia and Nuya, put out a message and was like, yo, has anybody talked to my brother? He hasn't been answering the phone. And I called immediately. They was like, yo, you really haven't been. It was a long time that I hadn't spoken to them. I was like, yo, I think I'm kind of losing myself out here. Then my work performance started to slip, and I've never been a lazy person. So like once I started to see myself like slipping, I was using the gift of gab to just coast. And I just felt less of myself. And I was like, you know what? I need to leave before I mar my reputation. And I'm not an excellent performer. So I just quit. I quit without a plan. I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have anything going on. I just quit. And I moved back home with my parents. And it was humbling. As a grown man who, right after the recession, had this corporate job and had to move back home, and I just started from ground zero. I started an open mic series in Chicago. I was doing some open mic hosting in Minnesota, but started an open mic series. I interned at a radio station. I just started from square one, and yeah.
You see, I told you the journey is there.
It's there? Okay.
It's not so overwhelming.
You believed in me, okay.
Because I can see it. I can imagine. And a lot of people could also, two things, could find themselves within that space of being at the corporate space. And it could be creative, corporate, whatever space that you might be in, that you feel like you want to pivot from. Hearing you right now and hearing the signs, because sometimes they ask you in the doctor, like, what are the symptoms? Yes. You're sharing some symptoms right now that we should be, when internally looking into ourselves, then start identifying that what is it describing is where I am right now. Maybe I should evaluate. So I think that's definitely good. And then the people who are also then in the space where they have just gotten into a new industry, they are thinking, is it like terrible that I'm moving back home? Maybe it's not.
No.
Maybe it's okay to take a step back and have that humbling experience.
Yeah.
And what did interning then look like for you at that radio station? What was that experience like?
You used the word humbling. Humbling. That was my 40 days and 40 nights period, except it lasted several years. It was a beautiful experience, but it was a humbling one in that, you're an intern, you're not making any money, which without money, you essentially can't date. You can't do, as a man.
Especially in America.
In America, you can't. I don't know how it is in SA, but you can't date, you can't do anything. So it was really like just a focused period. And so I ended up, let me find the quickest way to say it. I'll just leave it there. It was humbling. What ends up happening is I start this internship. Actually, not too long after I started, I want to say it might have been even day one, the current news anchor quit, put in his 2-week notice. He was upset.
The day you arrived.
The day I arrived. Somebody keep me honest, if y'all WVON listeners, or if you work with me at WVON, Perry Small, I think it was the day that I got there, I think David Martin IV put in his 2-week notice. And I remember going home and saying, yo, this internship is crazy. The news anchor quit today. They need a new anchor. And I said, she was like, why won't you? My mom said, why wouldn't you do it? I was like, no, that's not how it works. Like, I've never worked in media before. You can't just apply for a job. I was like, this ain't corporate America. You don't just submit a resume and get an interview. It was like, she was like, why not?
Why not?
And that was one of the illest questions ever. Every time I am tempted to have imposter syndrome, or anytime I think about my mama telling me, like, why not? Why can't you do it the way you want to do it? And it's something, you know, they say ignorance is bliss. There's something great about not knowing how things work because you get to do it however the hell you want to do it. And so I recorded an air check with, you know, a demo of me, you know, doing the news. And because of all of those years of listening to the news with my dad, I knew how to pretend to be a news anchor. And so I recorded my voice. I did my best news anchor's voice. Hi, I'm Dometi Pongo. There it is, traveling inbound on the Dan Ryan Expressway. It's gonna be 5 minutes. Like I knew how to pretend to be an anchor. Once the guy, my program director at the time, Todd Ruskowski, heard it and was like, it's actually not terrible. I was like, that's good enough for me. And so, you know, they tried me out as news anchor and eventually I became news anchor. And I took what I learned from corporate America, built a relationship with the station's president and ended up going to the producers meetings and sharing ideas and really just making that job, you know, everything that it needed to be for me. And that's kind of how it happened.
You see, I am so fascinated by this story. I think now it's like a movie in my head. You and your dad and your family in the car listening to the radio, and then that moment when it all comes full circle again. You're in the recording booth for the news.
Yes.
Now it's all coming back again, and now you have to be the one doing. Oh man, I love it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's crazy. God is the architect, man. He's the illest script writer you can have, yo.
But he's so sneaky about it.
Ain't it though? Like, why you couldn't tell me this is how it would play out? Because we'd mess it up. If we knew, we'd mess it up.
Ah, man. That radio station then becomes a catalyst that starts the fire for journalism. It starts the fire for media for you.
Yes.
What's the next step? Where do you go from there?
So started working in journalism and media, but I also had to grow as a journalist because I was pretending to be a news anchor, right? So how do I now do the news in my own voice? Yeah. You know, so that was a whole journey. And then it was, okay, I've got all this music on the internet that isn't becoming of a news anchor. So now it's scrubbing the internet. Do I really want to get rid of all of my archives of music? Do I really want to? It was a tug and pull from who I wanted to be and who I thought I should be in this space. And then there was this information gap, right? Because I kind of just ended up in journalism. So how do I get connected to other experienced journalists as mentors? And am I doing this correctly? And all of that. And so I started making friends with folks like Perry Small and Kathy Chaney, who was then Chicago chapter president of the National Association of Black Journalists. And all of these different people who just would kind of help me and, you know, go on to panels. And so it was just a lot of work just figuring out how to do this job. And then feeling like I was trying to be the version of the news anchor that I'd always seen. The buttoned up guy, the real strict and prim and proper guy that wasn't really me. And my only outlet at that time when I was doing that by day was to host these open mic shows at night with me and my homegirl, Jonetta Anderson, who's working on her PhD now, but she's a poet, goes by the name of Authentic Poetry as well. And we started putting these open mic shows together. So this is how I feed my artistic, that bug, but then this is also how I get my live hosting chops up. So now I'm practicing doing live hosting, which I did in undergrad. But so all of those things, the live hosting, just working the panels, all of that culminated into an opportunity at MTV when folks were asking, you know, they were trying to shoot a pilot for a show and my name came up. And all of this practice, and I call it practicing in public, you know, kind of culminated into what I'm doing now.
Before we go to MTV, which is currently, you know, what everyone knows you now as the guy at MTV and, you know, Paramount, etc. You mentioned the open mic, and I just want to touch base on that a little bit because you're speaking of community now.
Yeah.
And building community on your journey. What did those open mics mean to you? Was it, as you said, it was an expression of your creativity, but did you think deeper about it in that sense of community? Did you envision it to be community building?
Absolutely. It took me time to begin to think deeper about it. And I'm so glad you asked because I never really get a chance to talk about what the Artist Lounge open mic is what it was called, really meant to me. It was so organic that in hindsight, I wish we recorded so many more videos of those times. But it was about, first it started off as me and Jonetta were working so much outside of creative art spaces that we just wanted somewhere to kick it. So for those early open mics, it was purely us having fun. Yes, we had like 100 people come through and just watch us roast each other on the mic and let everybody express their art and stuff. And then later on, when it became community, was when different things would happen in the news that would just make us feel heavy, whether it was a police killing or whether it was an election that didn't go the way we felt it should have. Activists were writers and poets and thought leaders. They would come and get on the mic and share. We did fundraisers for Rekia Boyd's family, a black woman who was killed by a detective by the name of Dante Servin in Chicago. And their family came and expressed, and we didn't donate much, but we donated what we could to the family from the proceeds from the show. And it became kind of like an organizing space. And a lot of the people that I know who are like, heavy in organizing and community spaces in Chicago, I met them through the open mic scene in Chicago. And that doesn't happen without that community. So actually, MTV doesn't happen without that. The person who referred me to MTV, I met because I kept sending her messages trying to invite her to the open mic. She was a videographer by the name of Chan Smith. I kept messaging her, and then somehow MTV casting gets in touch with her, and she recommends me. So from career, community building, from like just personal well-being, and just getting a space to have a creative outlet, it was instrumental, but also in terms of mobilizing for, work around, just coalescing community around different issues that were affecting us on a day-to-day basis. That was kind of the hub where I learned from these poets, where I had to read to know what folks were talking about the next week. I had to really up my game in terms of like my knowledge. Like, it was all of that for me.
And would you also say it helped shape your voice as well to what journalist you were then going to become? Or
I wouldn't say, I didn't know that then. I wouldn't say it consciously, but I think it did show me that a lot of the news anchors that came to Chicago from other spaces, and I saw who was in the room, who were in the media, who were like, in the space, it let me see who was really touching the streets and whose perspective really mattered on that TV. Because some of y'all ain't outside. Some of y'all are reporting on, just because you're black and the news station might use your face to communicate to the public that they're in community. But that black anchor isn't in community. He hasn't heard these stories. He hasn't seen. Only time he's on the scene is when there's a shooting or something to report on. He doesn't know what it's like when the cameras go and you're still talking to that crying mother. And the reporters that are in community, that are connected, they're the ones that still stand the test of time today. They're some of the most noteworthy in the city that I respect. And I want to name them, but I don't want to accidentally not name anyone. But like, it's so many. Y'all know exactly who you guys are. And that, subconsciously, I think it informed the way I approach journalism, and it informed the way I do true life crime. And I wanted to be in the trenches and to be human when I'm connecting with folks. And I felt like a lot of people were like caricatures of themselves or caricatures of what a news anchor should be, but they weren't. After they got done reporting, they went back to the ivory tower. They weren't really tapped in. And so that space was a place I could tap in.
Yeah, we need a lot more of that authentic driven and true sense of journalism and media as well. What I'm wondering now is where you were the day, the time, the space when you got the MTV call. Like, what was happening? And did you cry? Did you laugh? Did you scream? Like, what's the first thing you did?
Yo, I love this question. So I remember where I was the day that I got the call that I officially got the job. I was in the car with my friend DJ Pat. DJ Pat XKL was DJ Pat Exclusive is what he goes by. That's my guy. We hosted a lot of radio shows together and such, and he made beats, and we met at WVON at my first radio job. He wanted to get me back rapping so bad. And I was like, he said, I know you still got the bug. I know you still like, I'm like, I don't feel that itch for real. You know what I mean? But I wasn't, I was just happy where I was creatively, and I didn't want to awaken that. Rap for me at the time was like rekindling a relationship with a woman that don't want you like that.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I was like, I'm not about to get back. I'm not about to do that. I'm not about to waste my time and like awaken that part of my brain. It's like, no. So we recorded a song together. And killed the record. We listening to it in the car, and then I get a call, and I get the call in the car that I got the job. And that was on, I want to say, a Monday. They asked me to be in New York by Thursday, and my show was going live by the following Monday. So I had to just uproot myself over the course of several weekends when I moved from Chicago to New York. It happened so quickly. But I remember getting that call. I was in the car with DJ Pat. I was beyond excited. Yeah, that was the moment. That was the moment.
And there's very few stories of people that are given 2-3 days a week to go and make it happen. And to some degree, God is telling you that you're ready when he gives you that amount of time. Did you feel that? Did you feel like, I'm ready?
You know what was so funny? I was just getting to the place of, I was just about to begin to be complacent. When I moved back home, I moved with my parents, and then eventually I moved back to an apartment on the south side. And I never decorated the apartment because I was like, I ain't gonna be here long. I was like, once I get a real job, once I get out of new space, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna spend money on all of this furniture to get this place in good shape. And then about, let me see, I began my career, 2013, didn't get to MTV. So 5 years goes by, and eventually I'm like, maybe I should replace that couch. It seems like I'm gonna be here for a while. Maybe I should change these curtains. Maybe I should. I had started to not give up, but ease up on my timeline. I had applied to a couple of jobs locally. I applied to a job at a couple of spots. I won't name the stations, like 3 stations. But I had filled in at a couple of spots, and I'd done interviews that I thought went well, and I got 3 no's. It was like, no. I was like, well, maybe I got more work to do. So let me just hunker down. Let me just live and, modestly figure out how to just recalibrate and regroup. And then I get the call, from MTV that they're looking at me. And so it was actually the moment that I was ready to kind of recalibrate and rethink my future was the moment that my breakthrough came. You ever see that meme where it's the guy, he's chiseling for diamonds?
Yeah.
And then the minute the diamond is on the other side, he turns back.
I've seen those, yeah.
Yeah, it was just like that. On Think and Grow Rich, they give by Napoleon Hill, there's a story they tell about this guy who, during the gold rush in the 1800s, used to mark the places that he was digging, looking for gold. And later on, somebody struck gold, got rich a couple of yards away from where he stopped. And he went on to be a great inventor and everything because he said, I'm never going to stop again, which is kind of counterintuitive because I quit one thing, but you got to know when to put something down and pick something up. So yeah, I was about to stop. I was kind of close to just kind of stopping. Yeah, I was close to complacency when I finally got my breakthrough.
And a lot of people, they just give up just when before it happens. And when you get in, is MTV, or at least the media space, at that capacity, everything that you'd imagined it to be?
No, not at all. I had this idea that we get our breakthrough, and it's like, this is going to be it. I equate a lot of things to the music industry. Like, you think you get your hit, and that's it. Pew, from here on. Yeah. But in reality, they're like just different. You have different milestones and touch points. And I've done so many shows that I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be, to a lot of folks I've broken through, and to myself I've broken through. Very, very, very blessed and happy. But I also, when you reach a checkpoint, you have a new checkpoint. You have a new goal. And you think that when you reach a certain space, or if only I can get a show talking about this, or if only I could interview this artist, or if only I can, it's, especially in this day and age, it's a continual grind. It's not really, it's few and far in between that really, even the people that you think popped on overnight were grind for a long time, So yeah, so it wasn't what I thought. Naively, I thought that, once I got in there, I knew it'd be hard work, but I thought that once I got there, that I don't know what exactly. I don't even know how to define it. Like, I don't know what I expected. Like, I don't know what breakthrough is, but when I got in that seat, it didn't feel like what I imagined it to be. All you got, it's the phrase, I guess the easiest way to put it, the top of one mountain is the bottom of another.
Yeah.
So all you saw, you get to the top of the hill and then you look and say, oh, there's more,
But also, to some degree, you knew that all the work that you had done in the past, all the radio, the corporate America, all of that culminated to that particular point. It was just a matter of you then taking from there and moving to the next, to the next, to the next.
That's it. That's true.
Yeah.
And then one of my defense mechanisms, if ever I feel like I'm not ready for something or inadequate in any way, I go get more information. It's hard to feel unprepared or inadequate, or if you know what you know. If you know what you know. So I remember when we started, like before we went live with the first MTV News show that we done was Need to Know, and I said, yo, I went to the team and said, let me practice in front of the teleprompter and just make sure we good. So we practiced, we did the teleprompter, and they were like, oh, that was great. And then I looked at the teleprompter, and my eyes were doing this. And I said, what do you mean that was great? Like, I'm never listening to anybody else again. Like, y'all looked at that and y'all saw me doing this and y'all thought that was okay? Like,
crocodile eyes.
Yeah, like, I tracking the words. And so I looked on YouTube and I was like, yo, how do you stop that? And they were like, yo, sometimes it means that the words on the teleprompter, this free game, the words on the teleprompter are too far apart in front of the lens. The way the teleprompters work, the words fly in front of the lens, and you want the words to be slim enough so that your eyes are directly on the viewer so that the words are coming through. I didn't know that. And so like I went on YouTube and found that. Then I asked them, would you guys be willing to pay for me to do some training? And then I went, and the lady, she helped me out, but she actually affirmed me that I was a natural. And I had been performing as an MC for so long, I'd been hosting for so long, that of course I'd been practicing for this without knowing it. But I just needed that affirmation because in my mind, a lot of things happened for me. It felt long for me, but when you look back, happened for me kind of quickly, that I felt like, am I really prepared for this? Do I really know what I'm doing? Am I really? And yeah, I knew exactly what I was doing.
And what I like about the story in which you're sharing with us of the live stage emceeing or hosting,
yes,
what it does is that because people are there with you, you can feel the energy, you can sense the direction and the move that they're doing. When you do live TV or anything live, you know exactly who you're speaking to because you've seen an individual watching you on stage. That's that right. When you're looking at the camera, you can see them, you can hear them, you can feel what they're feeling, that you're speaking exactly. And people are like, how do you do live TV? And it's like, it's exactly like being on stage.
It's exactly like it. It's exactly like it. Sometimes I imagine the people on the other side of the camera turning up. Like if I need to geek myself up, I imagine there's an audience on the other side and I'm playing to that audience. Absolutely. Spoken like a consummate host.
And you can't learn that in a textbook. You can't learn that in the textbook. You have to kind of practically do it.
Yeah, you got to touch community. You got to touch people in real life. In order to do that well.
What's your favorite thing about hosting, about being on TV, being on stage, and entertaining an audience? Like, what would you say is what you love the most about this art form? Exactly that, touching people. One of the funnest things I've ever done, and it wasn't even when I co-hosted the pre-show for the VMAs. It was when I did, we did a Women in Rap Week last November, November 2023. And it was fans of different artists. We had Lola Brooke in there, Mona Leo, Flyana Boss. And I just loved, after COVID, I hadn't done a lot of live hosting. And there was all of these fans in the room, and I was just hosting this talk back. It wasn't even a big production. It wasn't that many people in the room. But it was so fun. It was so fun because I missed live hosting. I missed being in front of a crowd. Like that's probably my favorite, being in front of the crowd, feeling energy. And my second favorite thing is just the fact that we get paid to be ourselves. I feel like in so many aspects of life we're being versions of ourselves to fit whatever job we have to do. It felt good to not have to worry about which version of myself to be in this space. I could be I could be every aspect of myself. I could, I know how to speak the King's English, but I can choose not to in this moment. That felt so good. That's probably my favorite, just being myself on camera. Yeah, that's so funny. I know how to speak the King's English. But oh man, I love that. And having the opportunity to be able to do that. If someone's watching and they're thinking, okay, maybe this entertainment industry is all rosy. Maybe it's all fun and games. What are some of the challenges that you'd say are anticipated, are organic to this industry, or even a part of this industry that one needs to be cognizant of? What were some of those challenges that you'd say that you have at least experienced?
I'll give one. They're like the one overarching one. Sometimes is if you have a personal moral compass, personal integrity, you have a vision for where you want your work to live and what you want it to mean. Negotiating the moments when you have to put that up and compromise. And I'm not even talking about like deep, dark things. Like I'm not talking about staying at the weird party or anything. I'm not even talking about that, right? I'm talking about interviewing someone on a basic level, interviewing someone whose music you don't love, right? Just these little things that you have to confront. And for some people that might not be a big thing, but for me it's big because as we said, authenticity is so important. And I don't want to talk to anybody negatively about their art, no matter what I personally feel about it. So how do I tactfully be present, be positive? What can I find about this artist that I love? Yeah. So that I can convey that energy. That's hard. And then, so that's the most like banal example. But then when it goes to politics and, or, you know, people whose whole disposition may be at odds with what you think the black community needs to listen to and talk to, and maybe what the questions you want to ask are in conflict with what the company you work for should be broadcasting, right? So those things are difficult to navigate. But if you, going back to what we talked earlier about sponsors and advocate in certain spaces and people understanding who they are, who you are and who they hired, those conversations become easier, and you learn how to navigate. You know how to pick your battles, and you figure out which battles are worth fighting and which battles you're gonna win, and how to get the most bang for your buck when you have that opportunity to use your voice in a specific and particular way. And sometimes you got to put the medicine in the candy. Sometimes it might mean having this really heavy conversation within the context of a pop culture story or something that's gotten people's attention right now. You know, it reminds me of the conversations that, you know, people are having around, you know, what does it mean to be a colonizer in rap music? You know, Kendrick accused Drake of that, right? But in general, it kind of opened this wider conversation, barring whatever you feel about Drake in that battle. In general, what does it mean when cultural equity is extracted without anybody giving back to that community? And so these banal things turn into opportunities to have bigger discussions. And so I think, to answer your question more pointedly, for me, it's figuring out how to negotiate your personal moral compass and what you want to do with what audiences are drawn to and what your company might want you to communicate, you know.
And I think from what I'm learning now, your experience within that open mic situation, having to understand people on a deeper level, enables even for the conversations in those negotiations, either with yourself or with others. Now, it's a little bit more easier because someone else might find it extremely difficult to the degree where they're like, you know what, this thing is not for me. Yeah. But because you've had that experience, and now it's a navigation that is a little bit more easier to explore.
A really quick example of that is you'll have these artists. Well, one thing that me and Authentic used to do was you'll have an artist who was doing a very powerful poem about Black liberation, like something just powerful, stirring a room, makes you want to start a revolution. Like, as soul stirring as I imagine a Fred Hampton speech to be, this poet is just giving you that. And then after they perform it, we'll play a song that has that same energy, but the message in it might be totally different. So after that poem, she might play Chief Keef's Finito, right? Now, that song has that same galvanizing energy, but the drill music message is totally different. What I've learned is that the human experience is very contradictory. A lot of us who are conscious and move in certain spaces also enjoy ratchet stuff. We are walking contradictions in some way. Yeah. And so you negotiate, like, this same person that's like, yo, you know, this artist is bad for the community, da, da, da. They can't deny what it did in that room. So then it shows you that everybody is redeemable. Yeah. Right? All aspects of our blackness, all aspects of who we are redeemable. Even the most ratchet, ghetto, whatever, we love it in our core, even if we know there are elements of this. I love hip hop. It's so misogynistic. How do I balance that, right? A lot of, like, you know, a Jamel Lemieux, Jamila Lamo. I don't know if I'm saying the last name right. Forgive me, sister. But she wrote a beautiful article, I think, in Vanity Fair, trying to figure out, like, how do I, as a woman who loves hip hop, listen to this battle where women are used as pawns, where, one artist is accusing one of domestic violence, the other is accusing the other one of dealing with women underage. But none of these things were issues throughout their entire career until it was time for them to go at one another, right? There are these contradictions even among this conversation from this artist who obviously is conscious. And so we are contradictions. And so it allows you the freedom to not be so rigid in those moments where you're indulging. When I'm interviewing an artist like Sexy Red, knowing I've also talked to luminaries like Nicole Hannah-Jones from the 1619 Project, blackness is all of that. We are all of that. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's like, when you brought up the open mic, that's what I saw. Like, I saw the streets were in there touching my open mic stage, and then the activists were touching it. We got so many commonalities. So finding that commonality in our stories and our journalism is what keeps me going,
And also allowing ourselves to experience the differences and the nuances and the dichotomy of who we are, right? Because I think sometimes artists are like, I'm just going to be an artist, I'm just going to do this, and this is, but allowing our differences and allowing the different versions of ourselves to come into play, and unleashes that dichotomy. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because it opens up a different conversation just generally about artistry and learning a little bit more about other things that can inform this artistry, that can inform these lyrics, that can inform, so I'm glad we touched base within that. Now you're at MTV. I mean, you're doing absolutely incredible. I know you've got a number of fans that are following you, that are loving what you're doing.
Thank you, sis.
Are you happy with where you are? Are you comfortable?
Yeah.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm very happy, but well, I shouldn't say I'm happy, but I'm very happy. But it's like we said, the top of one mountain is the bottom of another. And so I've been balancing. It's been great. I just had a birthday last month, and I've been thinking deeply about what does it mean to, strive for more while also appreciating where you are, and knowing that if, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I wouldn't have conceived of some of the things that I've been able to accomplish. And comparison is the thief of joy. So make sure you're comparing yourself to your former self and where you see yourself in the future. So in that aspect, oh man, immensely happy. But also in other ways, I got a lot of ground to cover, a lot of projects that I want to, that I want to see light, that I'm working on, and and when they do, I probably won't even be satisfied then. There'll be another thing that I'll be, so I'm kind of insatiable in that way.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy, man. I'm happy to be in a space where I get to use both my left and right brain,
What does your dad say now when he sees you? And
oh, they proud, man. My mom and dad, they proud. And, I realized they were proud when they even in Chicago before MTV, they go to work and, they'd be in the elevator at work or something. They both work in medicine, and somebody will mention, that Dometi Pongo, he said something on the air today, that blah, blah, blah. And then my mom like, that's my son. What? No, that's my, so they're happy. But you know how African parents are. They're not going to explicitly say, I'm proud of you. They're just going to, you'll just know it, know. So I know they're very proud, man.
And what does your sister say that she started this whole thing? Your older sister.
Oh, big dog, man. Knew you, man. They love it, man. She's a dentist now.
Okay.
And it's so funny. She'll call me randomly and be like, yo, I'm up to a fan of yours. Say what's up. And so she'll give me an opportunity to talk to people who are fans of mine. But sometimes I'm not sure. I'm like, are they really a fan of me, or did you just talk their ear off about me? And they're like, oh, your brother seem cool. And she's like, I'm calling now, So I don't know. And my sister Afinia, man, she worked in, she had started her own business for a while and was doing fantastic work with this initiative called the ICANN Collective. And I knew she was proud because she tapped me to be involved with so many different things, would sit on the panel and all these little things. They call me their little big brother, you know what I'm saying? So they're very proud.
The pillar of the home.
Hallelujah.
Do you have kids at the moment?
No,
Okay.
Not yet.
If you were to share a message to your children in the future.
Oh, this is deep.
What would you say to them about the navigation of, say, something as which what we're discussing today, career, for an example, what words would you give them in terms of navigating their careers?
Don't listen to anyone. Nobody knows what they're doing. That would be my advice. Because if I listened solely to my parents, I would have once again been unfulfilled. I would have been in the medical field. Everybody in my family's in the medical field. I would have been unfulfilled. And I had to go and try. I went and tried. I tried corporate America. I tried the conventional route, and it didn't work for me. And so, I'm glad I did, though. I'm glad I did that. But there are so many moments where I'm glad I followed my heart. Now, you have to make sure, this is what I would say, follow your heart, but make sure your heart is pure. If you have a corrupted heart, then you're following corruption. Yeah. So make sure your heart is pure and then just follow your heart. That'll probably be it.
One day, Dometi Jr. will watch this.
Oh, he's going to. And he's going to be like, well, Dad, you said follow my heart. And I'll be like, don't even listen to me. Don't listen to me when I said that.
That's great, man. That's absolutely great. What show are you on right now?
What would you tell your kid? You got kids?
I don't.
What would your message be? That's such a heavy question. I feel like what I said was honest, but it was also nothing new. It was cliche. Yeah. What would you say to your kids? I'm curious.
Look at him being the host.
I'm sorry, I can't help it. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. Oh, yeah. What would I tell my? It wouldn't be Vuyo Junior, obviously, because I'm the woman. So it would be.
No, you can make her a junior if you want to.
Yeah. VJ. I would tell my kids that, like, just go, man. Just go for it. Mm-hmm. I would tell them to be unapologetic as much as they possibly can be in whatever space that they find themselves in. Just be unapologetic and also just go into the world. Yeah. I found myself having to jump on a plane to come to America on a random Thursday, and I came here with, as you said, without a plan.
Also on a Thursday.
I think it was on a Thursday.
That's crazy.
And I just came.
Yeah.
And I would encourage them to just obviously the culmination of the things that you've learned, the skills that you've acquired come into play, right? So for me, an example, those came into play. So equip yourself as much as you possibly can. I know it's a deep question. Now I'm like, yeah, that is probably deep because now I have to think about it, and I'm just like.
It's such a good question. What would you tell your future child?
If you don't have one, because I'm sure if you did, you would be like, I've already told him several times.
Right.
But what's next for Dometi Pongo? I think it's as I said to you the first time I met you, I was like, your name sounds like it's meant to be on billboards. It's meant to be in the stars. It sounds like a name that you'd hear introduced, or you'd hear you saying, oh, my name is Dometi Pongo, and unlike the Oscars or like the Grammys, you know what I mean? It's that name.
That's it. That's what's next for me. I'm hosting the Grammys. I'm hosting the, I don't watch enough movies to host the Oscars. Music is my thing. I'll be executive producing a lot of projects. I think one of my goals is I want to transition into creating a space and laying a foundation while I'm still active and in front of the camera. I want to, by the time I'm ready to get, not be on camera no more, I want to lay the foundation for opportunities for other journalists, creators, not even just journalists, scripted series, for other creators to grow. So executive producing, I want to be an avenue for people to bring ideas, particularly, folks from the city who, I came from not just Chicago, which is a big city, which has an advantage, but then I spent my high school years in the south suburbs, which I was apart and away from, even further from being connected to opportunities. So I want those kids who are bigger than the places they may come from to have an opportunity to get their stuff off, you know what I'm saying? So I want to be the big homie that I didn't have when I was really, really young, who had an in the industry. So, executive producing things, scripted series, documentaries about the culture and all of that, and that's the goal.
I see it.
I have in the immediate future, I should say, when is this coming out?
Later this week.
Okay, so I can't say the name of this yet, but coming soon, I have a true crime podcast on the way that'll be out this fall. This is my first announcement of it, and and I really pray that the surviving members of the family of the story that I tell is pleased with what we do, and I pray that fans of the pop cultural topic that we're giving the backstory on. I hope fans of this cult classic movie that we're exploring the true story behind the movie. I hope fans of that movie gravitate toward this podcast as well. And we're talking about all of the issues we talked about, kind of culminate to this project that's coming out this fall that I'm really excited about.
And it's kind of unlayering those layers, again, back to the open mics and back to the community.
Yes, and back to radio, back to podcasting. I'm excited to get back to radio. I love podcasting and I missed it. So, that's what's next for me. Executive producing, podcasting, hosting, and your lips to God's ear, hosting the Grammys. I've never even voiced that as a dream, but I'll say it today.
Yeah, I can see it. What would your intro be?
Oh, you got to do the voiceover.
Okay, so to introduce you coming on stage.
Yes.
So let me do that. I'm going to introduce you coming on stage, and then you're going to introduce yourself on stage.
Oh, is that how it's going?
Yeah.
Okay, bet. Oh, I bet.
All right.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2027 Grammy Awards. On stage.
I'm nervous like it's really happening. Then I'm thinking about it. I'm like, what would the host say? What would my intro be? I don't know. Oh, give me 3 years. I bet I could do that in 3 years.
Yeah? Okay.
They got a great host already, but, hopefully he moves on to other things, other great things, so I can step in.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Grammys 2027. Next up on stage is our host for tonight, coming all the way from Chicago. Recently in New York, it is the one and only Dometi Pongo.
The first thing I would say, good evening, you're all welcome. Took you long enough. Took you long enough.
And then at that point, everyone is like, yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Waiting.
Right. No, I got to practice that. I'll practice a more humble intro. We'll figure it out.
Nice. What is happening now?
There it is. It's in the ether. It's in the ether.
Man, do you want to spit a bar before you? Because I want to now hear you.
Oh, dang, that's great. I lost it. I don't have it no more. Let me see what. Do I got a freestyle?
Yeah.
Illest interview that you know. Every time you tune in, you gotta listen to Vuyo. Sitting here sipping, got the mug with her name on it. And she said the Grammys, I'ma put my fame on it. I don't know. If I have a little kid, give him advice and put my chain on it.
Is there?
It's there. It's rusty. It's like riding a bike. I used to have writtens every day ready. But next time I'll be ready. I have a written. I got to get back to it.
Nah, I put you on the spot way too many times today.
Oh, that was perfect. It's perfect. And you gave me a beatbox. We got you.
Yeah, I tried. I used to help out the MCs in school. I mean, like the girl in the background.
It's because y'all languages. Y'all got the clicks. Y'all know how to. Y'all have a rhythmic language. You know what you're doing.
We are the original beat makers.
Yeah, I see it. Exactly.
Man, that was good though. But I really am. I am rallying behind your journey and everything that you're doing. I'm watching like a true fan, and I'm so excited that there are people like yourself. As you said, your heart is true. Your heart is good. Your heart is pure for the space, and we need a lot more people like yourself. So thank you for saying yes to getting into the industry in the first place, because a lot of people reject that calling, and they step aside, and then they find out 10 years, 20 years later that maybe I should have just stuck up with it and said yes. So thank you.
Thank you for this platform. Thank you for taking that flight that fateful Thursday and coming to the States, because the conversations you're having here are so important and inspiring. I was watching the show before I came on. It's just amazing. And I can't wait to see your journey as well. You're a phenomenal conversationalist and listener, and you make people feel seen and heard. And so I just can't wait to see you grow as well. So thank you for this opportunity. It really was a pleasure, man. I had a great time.
And is there anything that you want to say, leave to our audience, anything? Where do they watch you? Where do they find, like, just anything that you want to make sure that is mentioned here today?
Follow me at Dometi on all platforms, DOMETI. And, if you have the Paramount Plus, or it might be on Amazon Prime too, check out True Life Crime. If you're a fan of art, check out The Exhibit. I hosted an art competition series for the Smithsonian Channel. And if you're a fan of music, check out my music interviews on MTV. Feel free to follow the brand. And yeah, just stay tuned for more projects from me and talented friends of mine, and I hope to elevate as well. So, thank you.
That's amazing. I just need a studio audience because that would make...
You got the seats right here for me.
That would make the whole experience even much more better. But thank you so much for joining. I hope that you had a good time as much as I did.
That's amazing.
And I hope that everyone at home who's watching learned a thing or two from this conversation, but also felt something from this conversation, because I think Dometi's story right here is I wouldn't even say different, but it's significant. And we need a lot more of those types of stories being shared in the world. So thank you for watching the Vuyo Show. I am your favorite global darling, Vuyo Chimoda. And for myself and the one and only Dometi Pongo, ladies and gents, it's goodbye and have a fantastic one. Cheers for now.
Wonderful. Wonderful.